Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to welcome Dr. Tamara Beckford. Thanks for joining us today, Tamara.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thanks for having me.
Sure, I'm really excited to have you join me today. So thank you again. And in sharing how we met, that's usually how I start.
Mhm.
I sent you a connection request on LinkedIn back in April, and you responded, "Hey, Kim, thanks for connecting. I appreciate it. I'm curious, how did you get to my profile, and why did you decide to send me the connection request? Have a great
Mhm.
rest of your week." So I replied, I was like, that's a lot of questions. I hope my answers are good enough. So I said, "Hi, Dr. Beckford. I received a LinkedIn email that listed you as a recommended connection because we have
Mhm.
a number of other connections in common. Wondering if you also personally know doctors Michael Hirsch, Paul DeChant, Jillian Rigger, and Susan Baumgartel. Also, your profile page describes what I'm trying to do and working with my local healthcare system. The new
Mhm.
systems wellness officers for our large healthcare organizations work in the ER like you, an MD and a PA. So I thought we had some things in common." So that was a good enough answer because you responded. And we communicated.
Yes, absolutely. So it was really great, that request. And the question, it's a question because it leads one to open up conversation, right? So when you started to name some people, Jillian Riker, Jill and I are friends, and we meet up and we go out, and her dog Reese is like, my Yorkshire dog friend.
Yeah.
So I said, oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like that from then on, we've just been able to really connect. And we actually had a wonderful conversation. I don't know if you're going to let them know about that.
Yeah, we did. So we communicated more, and then
Mhm.
we Zoomed in June. And if you want to speak to that all, you can. And then I periodically updated you what I was up to. And then
Yes.
I asked you to collaborate on an article for Kevin MD with doctors
Mhm.
Amna Shabir and Dr. Robert Kornfeld. And it was this one right here. Doctors
Yes.
rediscover joy in practicing medicine on their own terms. And of
Absolutely.
course, you graciously agreed because we wrote the article. And then we recorded a podcast about it. And I thought that Kevin did a great job asking you and Robert really good questions. And I thought you
Excellent.
had really good answers. So I'm going to link the article and that podcast in the show notes.
Thank you.
So that was how we got started. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to.
Oh no, but one of I guess what I would add is one of the thing that really drew me to you, especially during our conversation, was your advocacy for physicians and for those who are on the other side of medicine, such as you are on the receiving side. There are times when you will have great encounters, and then there are times when you might not have such great encounters.
Mhm,
And those who are on the given side, there are times when you have done your best,
mhm,
you've given your all, and you never receive a thank you. You
mhm,
don't receive a wow, you did such a great job, a pat on the back. That's not the reason why you're doing that. But
mhm,
human beings overall, it's great to know that the hard work that you're putting out, that it's being well received and that it's having such great benefits. And when you and I spoke, you really talked about and highlighted how you were so thankful for some of your doctors. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's so many doctors who would love to just hear
mhm,
that one word, thank you, especially when they're having such a hard day. They're giving their all. And, instead of a thank you, they're hearing things like, why'd you take so long? And you
mhm,
need to hurry up and see this patient. Or, if they're working for institutions, they might be receiving reviews that have nothing to do with
mhm.
them.
Right,
You
that I
know,
couldn't find
these
a parking space, right? And then they give
exactly.
you a
I
one
don't like
star
your
review.
institution because I had to pay for parking, but it's part
Mhm,
of your personal
Right.
profile or it's your personal review. So it adds to the stress. So to have someone who is saying like, wow, I've had good and bad experiences in healthcare, but
Mm-hmm.
I really respect what you guys are doing. It was just so
Mm-hmm.
refreshing.
Well, thank you. Well, the good experience that I've had have like filled my whole heart, and and I'm just trying to give back and support physicians any way I can. So, and I thank you for your support as well and encouragement and what I'm trying to do. So as a little bit of background, you're an ER doctor, a
Correct.
speaker, host of the Dr. Tamara Beckford show, and a corporate wellness consultant. You train companies on employee wellness strategies that improve retention, reduce burnout, and lower healthcare related costs. And that's all
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yes, and I also help like in addition to all of that, I also help those who are in private practice. I with a private practice employee retreat. So we have a lot of our physician colleagues that have private practices that they're struggling a little bit with how to improve their productivity, how to improve their
Mhm.
proficiency within the private practice so that they can improve the profitability so that they can stay open to
Right.
take care of the patients in their community. And I help those doctors also with what I call a private practice employee retreat. So
Yeah.
that's a consultancy thing that I also
Yeah.
do.
That's terrific. You do wear many hats for sure.
Yes.
So, so today we'll be talking some about how the work you had started doing on yourself before the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
supported you during the pandemic, and
Absolutely.
how you moved through difficult times and have found joy in practicing medicine again, doing all those things I just mentioned.
Yes, yes. So, during the pandemic, one of the things that was really it was very counterintuitive for not only me, but for those around me, is that I began to thrive during the pandemic. Now, when you hear that, I don't want you to hear what I didn't say.
Hmm.
I said that I was thriving, but it was a personal thrive. It wasn't thriving because others weren't doing well. It was a recognition of why is it that I am able to balance all that's going on in my life and I am feeling joy
Hmm.
personally, internally, during a time when I'm having so many around me who are burning out.
Right.
As you mentioned, I am an emergency medicine physician. The pandemic was a time when others might have been able to run away from the fire, but I had to run to the fire. That was my job. And, taking care of those who were extremely ill, especially during a time when we had no idea what this virus was about, is what
Right.
I do. And I was thriving getting up and just running and doing
Mm.
all the things and helping my patients in a way where I still had a positive attitude towards my circumstances. I would be in the room, I'd have a positive attitude
Mhm.
towards taking care of my patients. Try to put them at ease as best as I can during a time when there was a lot of anxiety and stress around. Now, as you mentioned, one of the reasons that this happened when I did a lot of reflection is that I was working on a lot of personal development right before the pandemic started, but I didn't realize how important it would have been just a few
Mhm.
months later.
Right.
Things that I did were I noticed that I was a person that would snooze all the time. Oh my gosh, the alarm came on, snooze, snooze,
Mm.
snooze.
Mm.
And I'm like, why we recognize that time is such a precious element.
Mhm.
And I was really giving away a lot of time. And it wasn't that I was snoozing only because I was tired. I was snoozing because it was just a bad habit.
Mhm.
So I started to say, well, if I can get up a little bit earlier, all I need to do is to stop the snoozing. What is it that I need to do to just stop hitting that snooze button? I need to stop
Mm.
making it so easy to hit it. So now I started to put
Mm.
my phone away
Mm.
from my bed. So
Mm.
it's not just so simple as just tapping that button and finding out where did the other
Mhm.
half an hour go? Where did the other 45 minutes go? I thought I was
Right.
only going to take a nap for 5 more minutes.
Uh-huh.
So that's one thing that I worked on. And then as I did that, I said, well, I need to enter into the day with a lot of conviction and strength and be able to control as much of the day as I possibly can from an
Mm-hmm.
emotional standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I stopped just snoozing away, I would, because my phone is across the room, I also said, well, when I wake up, I'm not going to immediately just go on social media and see all the doom and gloom that's going on. If
Mm-hmm.
we remember during that time in the pandemic, every day you'd hear how many more people died,
Right.
how many more people had the virus, how many more people, and even while I was at work, there were a lot of people who would just keep refreshing the computer
Yeah,
screen,
right.
what's going on in the area. Oh, and
Right.
then it's like, oh, we're running out of things. We're running out. More
Right.
viruses, but we're running out.
Right.
All that led to a lot of panic and stress. So I said to myself, all right, when I wake up, I'm going to pour into myself
Mm,
all the positive things that I need to pour into to
mm,
build up my mind, to build up my strength, and
mm,
to build up my endurance. So
mm,
that's what I did first thing in the morning. Before I let anything else in that's
mm,
negative, the
mm,
only thing that comes in is something positive. So I listened to podcasts that had positive
mm,
information,
mm,
positive affirmations.
mm,
I listened to podcasts that taught you how to look at life from different circumstances and perspectives.
mm,
I started to so things like that, you probably listen. So Jim Rohn is one that he is one of the masters of the self-help era. So I would listen to Jim Rohn, Nightingale. I forgot his first name, but he also loved his voice.
mm.
It's like these are from the 1960s. These are
Oh
those
my goodness.
self-help tapes. Yes, so these were some of those self-help cassettes before we had CDs.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. So those, now thank God they're like, they're available on YouTube. So I'd listen to that. There's a website of a guy named David Carmichael who is from Canada, and he puts together a lot of positive information, and that was available. So all the positive, the self-help, the quotes from either athletes or quotes from
Mm-hmm.
those who are in politics, those who are in the media, those so from the Oprah Winfrey, like what are her top 10 things that she
Mm-hmm.
does to get herself out? What is the top 10 this, the top 10 that? So I started to just listen on and on. And then religion and spirituality is something that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go deeper into that. So I added that. So now the first few minutes of the day is poured
Mm-hmm.
into building my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Once I have done that, I can now tackle the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm tackling the day with a foundation that is strong.
Mm-hmm.
Foundation that's saying that you are the master of your domain.
Mm-hmm.
You can determine the day that you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can respond versus react.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed the difference when I did not do that.
Mm,
So the days when I would immediately
mm-hmm.
jump on my phone and start scrolling through social
Right.
media, or immediately just jumped on my phone and started reading my emails. The
Mm-hmm.
emails started to come in more of, hey, by the way, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, if we really think about how we feel, we start to feel very down. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, is either we get annoyed, so we start to react
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. And then once you start your day from that lower level,
Right.
you have to put a lot of energy in order
Mm-hmm.
to build yourself up. But once you start your day from that high level,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot
Mm,
to break you.
mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And I noticed such a huge impact on my life. It not
Mm,
only it impacts when you work and build on something that personable,
mm-hmm.
it is the foundation for almost every part of your life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, you start to notice you're not just responding to things differently at work. you're doing
Mm-hmm.
so at home to
Mm-hmm.
those who you love. You start
Mm-hmm.
to increase your patience, starts to improve your
Mm-hmm.
your clarity of the situation, something that would automatically get you upset. You start to
Mm-hmm.
look at it from the standpoint and say, well, what about this is getting me upset? I can
Mm-hmm.
choose how I respond to the situation, such as even something as simple as traffic. Someone
Mm-hmm.
zooms in front of you in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Before, you start to rattle off all the reasons, oh, that person is an A, B, C, D.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they do that to me, 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 me? And everything was me, me, me. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
start to look at things and you build yourself up from that perspective, then when
Mm-hmm.
that person zooms in front of you in traffic, you say, well, that wasn't very smart.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start to think, okay, there could be something going on in that person's life
Mm-hmm.
and them react that way. Did they just get bad news?
Right.
That they need to rush because something bad is going on at home.
Right.
Or, in addition to the fact that they could just be an impatient person, but we never
Right.
know. So when you start to pull out those perspectives, it lowers your mindset. And then the biggest thing happens, you just move on. So now this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't become a huge source of your conversation during the day because your day is just ruined because that person
Mm-hmm.
cut you off in traffic. It was just something that happened momentarily and you just moved on with your life. So it's just very powerful to be able to control these aspects of your emotions and the way that you respond to things throughout your day. And it puts you at peace. And that's what I felt.
Right, right. Well, I've heard before other people say how important it is to start the day exactly what you're saying with
Mm-hmm.
the positive, either a positive podcast, a positive affirmation before you do anything else. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really, really a wonderful takeaway, and it can change the trajectory of your whole day. So fill yourself
Absolutely.
up with something good and or beautiful to start the day. And the other thing that you mentioned with the traffic example is I had a conversation with Dr. Michael Hirsch,
Mm-hmm.
and because he's a coach, like yourself. And I remember at first when he shared something, it might have even been traffic, and exactly what you're saying, that you can tell yourself another story. And at
Mm-hmm.
first I'm like, well, is that stupid? But it's not if it changes the way you think about it, because he was like exactly what you said, are they rushing home to a sick relative, or,
Mm-hmm.
are they having a really bad day? And that you can tell yourself whatever you want. And if it changes your perspective, that's a good thing and that it's okay to do. And actually, I think I
Yes.
even shared this example on another recent podcast. I have a friend who was on vacation last February and she had to visit urgent care center and
Mm-hmm.
she had a poor experience with the physician. But because knowing what I do and I said my doctor said, it's all that, she was able to stop and think, well, what if that doctor is having a really bad day, right? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe he's not, maybe he's a jerk because some
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
jerks, right?
Exactly. Some
but
people are just some
but
people.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
But to have that perspective, and if it changed, so instead of her leaving like, grumpy or complaining, that she was able to have empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it changes you inside. So that's just a good
Absolutely.
thing. So those were two really important things that you've shared already. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. No, you're right. Even with that situation that you mentioned with an encounter with someone and that person was mean. And if we really think about how our lives and naturally we become, when that person throws out that negative energy to you, then you throw
Mm-hmm.
it back at them and then you leave and your energy is negative throughout the entire day. But as your friend says, reframing it,
Mm-hmm.
then you neutralize it and then you move on.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And then too, if other people have personalities that are like a little more negative or less feeling,
Mhm.
if you can show them kindness and empathy, right, then
Absolutely.
you can be a
And
positive, uh,
yeah, the least that
influence.
will happen is you neutralize them. And that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, because I've had patients, I've stepped into encounters, rooms where the patient is just extremely mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just stay and I listen. And I
Mm-hmm.
listen because sometimes that person just wanted someone to listen to them.
Right,
And
right.
I listen and I just let them air out everything. And then by the time our encounter ends, they're apologizing because a lot of the times the encounter had nothing to do with me. I just so happened to step into the
Right.
environment at the time. And but like I said, the least that will happen is that person ends up being neutral zone,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But you, it's important that that doesn't change you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
yeah, right.
stay.
And that you do have some control over that instead of thinking that things keep happening to you, to recognize your own power and control that you can have. That we all have more
Absolutely.
control than we think yeah, right, more over
Absolutely.
our thoughts.
Over our
Anyway.
thoughts. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So I'm
Absolutely.
curious, how did you actually find coaching? And like
Oh,
the community of entrepreneurial physicians, because that those were
mhm.
important to you like during the pandemic. So I was just wondering, because everybody has their own story, and there's some
Yes.
physicians that haven't tried coaching yet, might not be open to it, and then that
Yes.
like community of entrepreneurial physicians. So I was just, if each person tells their story, so how did you come to those things?
Absolutely. So during that time of the personal development, I actually have a wonderful friend that we have gone to med school. We were, for those who've had friends from way back when they were your study buddies. So, this friend and
Mm-hmm.
I, we studied together and we were just always friends. And she introduced me to there was a summit that was going on, the Leverage and Growth Summit, which, there's some of the docs that you've encountered with it have been part of that summit. And it was for doctors who were doing additional things like side work or, side businesses in addition to medicine, and just kind of exploring and teaching others, hey, these are some of the things we're doing and so forth. So she was part of that. And I, at that time, was thinking of starting my business, but I didn't know how. I'm like, I want to do this, but the only thing, which is what happens in our mind, the only thing I know how to do
Mm-hmm.
is, and that's how our mind limits us because we've focused on one thing for an extended period of time. So once I listened to that summit, there was a doctor there. Her name was Dr. Una. And she said that, I'm starting a business school. And I'm like, well, I need a business school because I'm starting a business. And the way that she had the school, she had a podcast. I listened to her podcast. And then I just felt very connected to her through that. So I joined that business school and it was a coaching program. And I'm still a part of it now. As a matter of fact, I now work as a part
Mm-hmm.
of the Entre
Mm-hmm.
MD Business
Yeah,
School.
wow.
That's when I do, help in the physicians weekly through that. But being part of that and learning a lot of the power thoughts that we're even talking about, that was my introduction to that in addition to what I was doing. So it up leveled what I did. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason I can say it up leveled it is that this program, it's a group coaching program. But we're really more than just sitting and discussing. We're sitting and we're actively working. So as I got introduced to the coaching and just realized that my mind can be opened and I can watch others along with myself, I see the growth that happens through just breaking down a lot of the mental barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not only something that we did then, but this is something that is ongoing because our mind is a very
Mm-hmm.
pliable and is very malleable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we've worked on improving certain mindsets, but then it comes back, it sneaks back
Right.
in when you've increased you've moved from one level to the other. But then if you aren't aware or self-aware, you realize, wait a minute, I'm still having some of
Yeah.
these same insecurities. It's just presented itself this way. So the coaching allowed you to, one, recognize what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, recognize your mindset, your what we said limited beliefs, which is the mind that tells you that you are unable to do additional A, B,
Mm-hmm.
C. It also, coaching opened my mind to the power that I have within.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest thing, it also opened my mind to the strength that I have to help others
Mm-hmm.
and that the ability that I have to help others, it's not focused in just one area of my life, I
Mm-hmm.
have additional skill sets
Mm-hmm.
that I had all along,
Right.
but I ignored it
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't believe in its power.
Mm-hmm.
And so it brought that out. And it's not until you have one gotten over a lot of your own limited beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
which is what coaching does, you've
Right.
gotten over the fear of putting
Mm-hmm.
yourself out there, the fear that we naturally have as human beings of being ridiculed,
Mm-hmm.
being laughed at, you know, being ostracized because
Mm-hmm.
human beings, we're social beings. So a lot of things that
Right.
we do, we try to do so that we can stay within the social community and
Right.
survive from that standpoint, evolutionary standpoint. But then it's okay to sometimes go against the grain.
Right. Or it's
Like,
okay to do it even if you are a little afraid. Because I remember the
it's
first article, I
absolutely.
submitted to Kevin MD was a tribute to my radiologist, and then a podcast slot opened up, and I was scared. So I had said Michael a message like, "Oh my gosh, like this," and he's like, do it nervous, do it scared, just do it. So I was like,
Absolutely.
okay, because it was like a couple days later, and I was like, well,
Mhm.
maybe it's better if I don't have a lot of time to like worry or prepare. So I'm like,
Yes.
do it nervous, do it scared, right? So that should be
Yes.
a message for other people. Just right, give it a try, right?
And the thing about it is that what you just did was the antidote for fear, action.
Okay.
Because
That's a
yeah,
good.
because so you did the antidote.
Hmm.
So the fear will paralyze us. And then when we
Mm-hmm.
don't take action, we stay in that paralytic state. And in that paralytic state, our mind takes over and adds enormous scenarios that
Mm-hmm.
90% of it is not true. And then our mind tells you it's a good thing that you didn't do anything because had you done this, could have happened. That could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Negative thing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it just starts to create this enormous story. Now, when you did what you did was took action. And action, you got rid of the antidote for fear, number one. And number two, you now are doing this on a consistent basis. So not only did you go from being afraid to do a
Uh-huh.
podcast, now you're
Right.
hosting your own podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
If
right.
that isn't an
Isn't that
antidote.
crazy? Well, actually, my husband told me because all of this stuff, like I keep saying, I can't believe all of this. It just feels crazy. And he's like, stop saying crazy. He said, say unexpected instead. So I guess
Yes,
that sounds, so I guess that's a step up. But yeah.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
because I think Michael has also said that you fail ahead of time. If you're afraid and you don't do it, then
Yes.
you're doomed it because it's like, what if you try it and you succeed, right?
Which majority of the time that's what happens, but our
Oh,
mind tell us,
yeah.
oh no, we're gonna trip and fall and everyone's gonna laugh. And it's the opposite happens. There are more people out there who are afraid and
Mhm.
are in awe of the step that you've taken. And when you do it afraid and you, like we said, use that antidote of taking
Mhm.
action, there are more people willing to help you and support you
Uh-huh.
than you
Yes.
thought because your mind tells you
Right.
nobody's going to help you. You're going to be
Yes,
by
yes.
yourself.
You're exactly right. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
exactly right. So the support will come to you. The support wants to come to, right? Dr. Charity Hicks just said that in a post recently, right? The
Yes,
support wants to come to you. So I hope that we're encouraging, motivating, and inspiring. If any physicians out there have, any thoughts in the back of their head that they'd like to try something, go for it. And the support is out there. And we could connect you
absolutely.
with that support, right? We both know a lot of
Absolutely.
people. We know people. We know a
We do
guy
know
and
people.
a girl.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Well,
go out
thanks. Well,
there.
this has been such a great conversation so far. Was there any tips you had for your colleagues or just anything else you wanted to share with the audience? You've shared so many wonderful nuggets here so far.
I what I wanted to share is this thing called fear, like we said, false evidence appearing real. It is something that will not go away. It is a part of our biological makeup. It manifests itself in many different ways. It manifests itself in doubt. It manifests itself in pride. It manifests itself in many different ways. But the antidote to all of that really is movement, aka action. And it's okay to do it scared. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to do it afraid. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be uncertain of what lies on the other side. But the really cool thing that most of us who are doing things scared have realized is that on the other side, there's a magic that we
Mm-hmm.
would have not experienced had we not just taken that first step. So there are a lot more people out there willing to support you than they
Mm-hmm.
are people there who are ridiculing you. So if you are afraid of being ridiculed,
Mm-hmm.
just know that there are more people who are ready to support you. And all you have to do is take that first step, ask, and you'll be put in a huge pool of support and people who are
Mm-hmm.
just willing to just champion you on
Mm-hmm.
and cheer you on to that next level.
And you're right, and that's beautiful, and it's so true. There's plenty of people that do want to see you succeed, right? And that you said there's
Mhm.
magic on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. This has been really a wonderful conversation. And
Thank
how can
you.
our listeners find you?
Absolutely. So I am available on social media. I put out a lot of content. That's one of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
I think that that's one of my go-to thing. I love putting out content. So you can find me on Facebook. My name, Tamara Beckford, Tamara, B as in boy, Eckford, where I put a lot of content in for those who are looking for private practice, employee retreat, information on staff, how to improve your staff, how to improve your efficiency in your private practice. If you are on LinkedIn, you can find me there too, Tamara Beckford MD. There, I put a lot of content out about employee management and how to decrease your stress and burnout in the organizations overall and increase your employee retention. So it's the same content, it's just focused on a different way. And if you are looking for a wonderful additional podcast to this one, I have the Dr. Tamara Beckford show where I interview other physicians who are doing amazing things inside and outside of clinical medicine. So all of those areas you can find me. If you're looking for a speaker to speak on stress and burnout prevention, you send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com. So those are all the different ways to find me.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds terrific. So thank you again for being my guest today. It
Thank you,
was so good
Kim.
to have you and have another conversation.
Yes, yes, yes. It was definitely wonderful. And like I said, it's great to have someone there championing in the physicians on and letting them know that it's okay if you have a bad day. We here on the other side of medicine really appreciate what you're doing, and we're here supporting you. So thank you for being that person to let us know that we have support on the other side of the curtain.
Well, thank you. I'm a grateful patient, and I'm going to get the word out to everyone that doctors are human too.
Yes, we are.
Right. So, okay. So, in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So, stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.